Well, George Graham is the Director of Conflict and Humanitarian Policy. He campaigns with the Save the Children organization. He joins us now live from The Hague. Thanks so much for speaking to us. You know, our world has a history of war, but has the effect on children and the treatment of children in war actually become more detrimental over the last decades?
Well, the organisation I work for is Save the Children, and this was founded 100 years ago this week, at a time when children in Central Europe were being deliberately starved by my own country's government, by the UK government and other allies after the First World War. So there have been dark times in history before, but what we found in our work is that over the last 10 to 15 years, since the end of the Cold War and beyond, the numbers of children being caught up in conflict have gone up and up and up. So there are currently 420 million children living in conflict-affected areas around the world, and the violations that children are suffering, the killing and the maiming and the other violations, have also reached record highs.
That's remarkable. And, you know, because of, as our reporter was saying, and as your organization has put out, because of the lack of pediatric specialists, your organization and the Imperial College of London actually has launched this pediatric blast injury field manual for health workers.
That's right.
In the field working with children. Tell us more about what it entails and how much you really hope it can achieve. Is it a breakthrough of sorts to have developed this?
It feels like a breakthrough. It's one of the depressing features of the modern landscape of war is just the number of children being blown up by explosive weapons. And yes, many countries have got good pediatric doctors who are good at caring for children. They have good surgeons, but there are very few people who have experience of patching up bodies of children that have been blown up by blast. And what we've discovered researching it is how differently children suffer from blast injuries to adults. They're smaller, they're more likely, far more likely to suffer blasts to the head. And their skulls are thinner, so that means they're more likely to suffer brain damage. Their skin is thinner, which means they're more likely to be burnt. They're more likely to suffer multiple wounds. There are so many features in which, or ways in which, children suffer differently and frankly worse than adults. And it's very difficult for medics who haven't got the proper training or the proper guidance to respond to that. Now, this manual is an attempt to break through that. So we've got now, there are doctors in Syria right now with that manual who now have the confidence to do the right medical procedures when a child, when a 5-year-old and 8-year-old gets wheeled into their hospital following an explosion. They have the confidence and the skills to make sure that child survives. That feels like a breakthrough.
Right. I mean, could, though, more be done at an international level to better legislate, if that's the word I can use, to protect children in war zones? Or has it just become so out of limits, the war zones are so out of control that even international legislation wouldn't help?
Well, no, I'm confident that there's a lot that can and must be done to protect children in war. It's not so much new legislation that's needed. It's three basic things. It's actors in conflicts to uphold the existing standards. There already are rules that say you have to distinguish between civilians and combatants. Just upholding those standards. And if governments in the worst war zones and non-state actors won't uphold those standards, let's at least make sure that other governments who are a bit more open to following the rules-based system uphold them. That's one. Two, let's hold perpetrators of violations to account. It shouldn't be okay or acceptable or possible for somebody to commit atrocities against children without any fear that they might one day find themselves in court for the crimes that they have committed. And three, there are practical actions that can be taken. Practical actions like this blast manual, which is an after the event action, but also practical actions to protect children before violence happens. How do we make schools safe? How do we educate children on the risks that they might face so that they don't get blown up by weapons such as the ones we're describing?
Okay, George Graham, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for sharing your insight from The Hague.